What in the hell am I playing right now? I should totally do a review on this. Wait, I already did. How is that going anyways? Ooh. Ugh. Has it already been that long since my last review? Oh man, is it even worth doing another one at this point? Okay, what do you think, unnecessary clone of me? Why the hell did you create me? Are you sure? Alright, I guess I'll make another review. But what game should I review though? Review? What are you talking about? Shadow Tower. Isn't that one game that I mentioned back in my Dark Souls review? I'm not even here right now, aren't I? You know what? You're right. I will review Shadow Tower, and for all of those been sticking by me since the beginning. Well, I'm back again, everyone. For now. Anyways, welcome back to another gaming review. Now, if you've seen my Dark Souls review, then you know I mentioned a couple games in there.
And it is also a spiritual successor of Demon Souls, which is also a spiritual successor of the Kingsfield games, and possibly Shadow Tower.
Now, I already did a video on Kingsfield a few years back, so instead, I'll be taking a look at the...
Much like its predecessor, Shadow Tower is a first-person dungeon crawler. You explore, well, Shadow Tower, and its many layers that's just filled to the brim with monsters that want you dead. When booting up the game, you are given an intro video. It doesn't really say anything other than, you will die, and this place sucks. Starting a new game, you are given a brief, and I mean brief, exposition on what the end goal is. Basically, a town that lay beside this tower just suddenly disappeared, and a young warrior, you, decides to face the tower by yourself. That's the extent of the story you'll get. Much like Demon Souls and Dark Souls, you're only given a bare minimum story to work with, and you'll learn more, hopefully, through the sparse amount of characters that's also in this tower, alongside some bloodstained text on the walls.
You yourself have to fill in the holes, which isn't a bad way to tell the story through gameplay, but it just doesn't do it for me here. Maybe it's because the other games do it so much better, or I just don't give a damn and I just want to get through this game as fast as possible.
When you finally get into this game, you're on a narrow pathway with some stairs going up and some going down. Well, after thinking about it and thought, F this, I don't care about some stupid town, and try to head back up, well, you're not really given much of an option. The tower is split into 8 different sections, each with their own gimmick and enemies. The human world, which the towers a complete lie, earth world, fire world, water world, illusion world, beast world, death world, and the void. Knowing full well of the dangers that lie ahead of you, you start with nothing. Why is it that adventurers think that going into a deep, dark, monster-filled dungeon without standard equipment is a good idea? Him and the Kingsfield guy need to go back to Adventure 101. Anyways, you go further into the tower and you meet your first enemy, Slime! Seems standard for a JRPG.
Slime. I just started the game and already I died because of a goddamn slime.
Yeah, with some of these enemies like the slime, it can be a little hard to discern where the hitbox is at first. By a few swings, didn't go so well. And if you've noticed anything from the start though, the draw distance is horrendous. It's really hard to get a general idea of where you are, where you've been, because of how much darkness there is in this place. Thankfully, since the game has absolutely no music, you can hear enemies from the distance. Either that or you'll get a laser shot at you, then you'll know. So there's no real cheap shot. There are a couple ways to light the room, either have a torch, or if you actually want something useful, there is a certain item that fully illuminates the rooms for a bit. One thing that separates Shadow Tower from other traditional RPGs is your leveling. Shadow Tower doesn't have an experience system, instead it follows more like Elder Scrolls. Such as the more hits you take, your health goes up, hit enemies with your weapons, your strength goes up, etc. And there's no real need to grind, as your stats will go up naturally as you play, which is appreciated. Another helpful thing is that all of the health potions that you find throughout the tower all fully heal you, which is nice since there will be a couple of times where you just get drained of all of your health when you're surrounded. Now, this wouldn't be much of a dungeon crawler if it didn't have any secret walls, and if you're diligent enough, or just hug the wall the whole game just spamming the X button, you'll find something. Like a skeleton that'll kill you faster than anything on this floor. Nice! Speaking of enemies, did I mention how cool some of them are? Granted, you'll have your generic slime, your skeleton, and just some odd ones such as the plant that can shoot lasers, or a mortal enemy, moving tree. But then you'll have some enemies that, when you see them, will make you scream, "What the f*** is that?"
Now, it's pretty easy to see the influences that this game had on the Souls franchise, such as the lack of music and the enemy designs that make me question the sanity of the game programmers. But there's one thing about this game that holds it back from being a classic. It's not very good.
Honestly, this game just tends to drag as it goes on and on. Sure, some of the regions of the tower has its own unique mechanic, just as the water world is covered in acid, or the beast world, the enemies are invisible without a certain item. But as I go through, there are just a good bit of enemies that function the exact same. You'll see some that shoot lasers, you'll come across enemies that has explosion attacks, you'll even come across some robots. Wait, what was that about robots? But it never feels like it evolves from the start to the end. Even the battles get boring after a while. I just tend to circle the enemy and attack till they stop moving. And given how many enemies have the exact same attack patterns, you'll tend to have the same strategy for all of them throughout. Though one mechanic that did carry over to Kingsfield is the stamina bar. And much like that game, the second that you attack, the stamina bar is completely drained. And if you want to deal full damage, you'll have to wait for the bar to replenish. And the same thing happens when using magic. Another thing that this game adds is a durability system to your weapons and armor. The more you use them, then they'll break. What makes this more annoying than it has to be is that whenever you see a new weapon or armor, it's almost never in full repair. Sometimes it's at near breaking point. I guess it makes sense since these are probably used weapons by other adventurers, but it's just frustrating to find something that just happens to be better than what you're using, only to not use it because it turns out just by using it once it's gonna shatter it, and it feels kind of pointless to have it in the first place. On the plus side, there are ways to repair equipment, such as an item that repairs it a couple of points, or there's a vendor. Speaking of which, let's talk about that. All throughout the tower are a bunch of tablets scattered about. One that saves your game, one that teleports you around, and some that has various vendors.
If you've got no business with me, go away.
Rude.
You have your item shop, your repair shop, though if you want to repair your equipment, you have to pay with your life. Literally. So if you need to repair a bunch of broken stuff, you better make sure you got a few potions on hand. But given how spread out all the repair shops can be, it can also be very frustrating to have a near broken piece of equipment, making you have to run away from enemies so you don't break it. So as you're going through this whole tower, killing seemingly random bosses that honestly aren't very tough, you get to the final realm, the Void. You fight a giant armored guy who can take about 2,000 hit points of yours, fair, and has 2 phases. After a good bit of damage, he takes off his armor, and he just does the same thing, but just a bit faster. And after that, it's the final battle. The end is nigh, and it's a joke. His hits are about as effective as a slap. It doesn't really have much in terms of strategy. He just kind of slaps you a few times. So I just stood there and kept whacking him until the game said I won.
Yeah, that tends to be a trend when it comes to From Software games. The final bosses are about as effective as a wet napkin. Not much happens after that. I tend to get a...
Why do you seek the crown?
Crown?
This crown gave me power to become a conqueror.
Yeah, I have no idea what that was about. I could have sworn I was trying to save some town, not become king of the country. And maybe there was something I missed, but as far as I can tell, I really don't know what was going on. And that's basically Shadow Tower for you. A mediocre game that I wouldn't completely recommend to you unless you're a hardcore Souls fan and would like to see the origins of where this game came from. The combat was not improved at all when it came to the previous Kingsfield games, which I feel like I was way too lenient when it came to that anyways. The story is practically non-existent, even with all the dialogue that you get from the game, at least to me. And all in all, the ending was somewhat unsatisfying. Now, it is possible that because of this game, we did get the Souls franchise in the first place, which I can be glad about. All in all, I would give it a pass. Not great, but it's not really worth your time. Anyways, that's all I have to say about it. I will see you all in my next review next year.